Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where today it's 9/11, September the 11th, and it would be impossible not to talk about it on a music show because music was very much a part of the tragedy, its aftermath, the insanity that followed the initial aftermath, and I'm going to do a couple videos today on that, but I want to start with one that's a positive video. And this is all about the concert for New York City. Now, this took place just over a month after the 9/11 disaster, on the 12th, oh, sorry, on the 20th rather of October. And this concert was very special because the majority of the audience were made up of the firefighters, police officers, their family members of the victims who died that day, people who were in the towers or around the towers but survived on that day. And they were all invited to this concert where some of the biggest musicians in the world, both bands and artists that were new in the early 2000s and sort of your classic artists from previous decades, performed. And there was something, just I wasn't there, but I was watching it live, and there was something very raw about it that was hard to explain. Or there were lots of shots of the audience, and so you could really see the raw emotion, the sorrow, the anger, the confusion among some people, and that the artists who came, most of them really came with the best of intentions, which is we are going to give away what we do, our art, to these people who were in a position that most others couldn't even begin to fathom, but we're just going to do our best to give them something. And it does show, I know it's cliche, but that art does have the power to heal and to move and to distract, all of which are important things after such a insanely violent and tragic event like that. And I'm just going to read you some of the artists. There was David Bowie. He performed America and Heroes. Bon Jovi performed. Jay-Z, who was sort of at the top of his youngish career at that time. The Goo Goo Dolls, who were very big at the time. Billy Joel appeared on the stage several times, once alone, once with Elton John. The performance was closed out by Paul McCartney. Eric Clapton performed with his friend Buddy Guy. Destiny's Child. This was before Beyonce was a huge star in her own right. They performed the Backstreet Boys. That's a name that really takes you to the late 90s, early 2000s. They performed so many others, lots of actors, some politicians, some of them were booed. Hillary Clinton, in particular, some actors were booed as well. Janet Jackson performed, James Taylor performed, of Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, of course, of the Rolling Stones. But the band that really, really stole the show, and the band that was impossible even for the biggest acts in the world to follow, was The Who. They really did a set for the ages, one of their finest sets, and adding to the whole sort of special but also eerie atmospheres, it was one of the final gigs that The Who ever played with John Entwistle, their great original bass player. Now, Keith Moon was obviously gone by now, but his student, Zach Starkey, Ringo's son, was playing drums with The Who, and I think still is. And he's really a good drummer. Really, if anyone could have filled in for Keith Moon, it should have and would have been him. And he did great that night. And the three original members were just on top form. And there was something. It's one of those things where you can try to explain why The Who was so perfect for that. You could say that it's because Pete Townsend, with his operatic tendencies, rock operas, he knows how to capture the drama of the moment. That Roger Daltrey, as a sort of salt of the earth working class guy, can relate to many of the people in the audience who came from similar backgrounds. You could say that John Entwistle, because he was stoic at all times on stage, doing what he did best. And while some emotion is good at times like that, some stoicism is also needed to keep one sane and keep one's feet on the ground. So there were the personalities that I think made it important. There was the fact that Who songs are iconic, but I think there was also just the fact that they had songs that have the potential to be so cathartic and so anthemic. And they just, whether they decided consciously or unconsciously, we're going to play the one hell of a gig. And they did from front to back, no mistakes, all passion, all perfect. A perfect set list, frankly. Who Are You, Bob O'Reilly, Behind Blue Eyes, We Won't Get Fooled Again. Probably the most famous songs The Who ever did. And the fact that We Won't Get Fooled Again ends with Meet the New Boss, same as the old boss, that had so many multiple meanings and was so important. On the one hand, there was the jingoistic meaning that America was the superpower before. It will remain the superpower, and to a large extent, obviously, that's true. But it also means don't be deceived. The people that deceived you before this tragedy are the people who are deceiving you now that we're living after this tragedy. The people who slept walked you into this kind of environment are the same people running the show. And I think that so without having to make any political statements, just doing their music and expressing their love and compassion and sympathy to those audience members, including the heroic men and women there, that was enough. And the subtext was there for anyone who wanted to think about it on future listenings, because the concert is, I do believe, fully available on your YouTubes and your Amazons and all of that other stuff. So, while a wonderful concert with great musicians and comedians and actors, it was really The who, in a medium-sized set, really stole that show and stole the hearts of the world one last time before, sadly, John Entwistle passed away early that next year. Like, subscribe. We will see you next time. Take care.